met on my first tour, which was in Hue at the consulate. We had a consulate there, and she was one of our locally engaged staff, and that's how we met. And the courtship continued for the next couple of years. The consulate was burned in 1966 in an anti-government protest movement, and we were both transferred to Saigon. So the courtship continued there. I went back home to Washington, and it was cold, and I didn't know people, and they wanted to send me to Brazil, and I had no great interest in going there. And so, having been staff aide to the ambassador, I knew who to call, and at the embassy, and get them to request me to come back. They did. I got back, and I stopped off at the consulate, and we renewed the courtship. By that fall, we were engaged. My third tour was to end the following March, and so we were going to get married right after. But, as you may know, Tet is a big, big thing for the Vietnamese. So, of course, she came home for Tet from Da Nang to Hue, and we arranged for me to come down and meet her there for dinner at her house with the family on January 30th, 1968. Not a good time to arrive in Hue because 3 full regiments of North Vietnamese Army attacked and occupied the city that night with a French priest who lived 3 or 4 houses down the street to take me in. And about sundown, 6 o'clock, we had arranged a signal where he came and saw that the North Vietnamese were grouped around a little fire they built at one end of the courtyard there, cooking their dinner. And he gave me a signal to cross. I did. I'm sure they saw me both times, but they almost certainly assumed that I was a Frenchman working at the power plant. So they didn't bother me. But anyway, he moved me over some back fences and so forth to the house of Father Cressonnier, a French priest, who took me in, and he gave me a black gown and the beads and the whole outfit. So thankfully he was a big guy, about my size. And so for the next 9 days I was a French priest behind the North Vietnamese lines in Hue. So there I stayed until the Marines, who were sweeping the south side of the city in that direction, finally got there on the 9th day after the attack and liberated me. They carried me out on a door frame that had been blown off when the house that we were in was hit by a mortar, direct hit on the 2nd floor. Thankfully, it was a 2-story house. We weren't hurt. We were downstairs at the time. They carried me out as if I were a wounded Marine, so as the neighbors hopefully wouldn't know that the priest had been hiding an American. And I went to MACV, the headquarters, and where they had, by that time, they had established a pretty big perimeter, and there were a lot of Marines there. It was a hell of a fight. That was the biggest, most casualties, and the most strategically important battle of the Tet Offensive by far. But managed to get on a medical evacuation helicopter to go to Da Nang, the Corps headquarters, to sort of report in and get a change of clothes and some food and so forth. But I told my bosses there in Da Nang that I have to go back and find Thuy Cam. And they said, no, you can't go. Fighting's still going on. Do not go to Hue under any circumstances. I nodded and said yes, and made my way out to the air base and found a friendly Army helicopter pilot and hitched a ride right back to Hue. The communists did when they occupied Hue. They murdered over 3,000 South Vietnamese, people who worked for the South Vietnamese government, people who worked for the Americans, and she was in grave danger because of that, or political leaders, or anybody like that that they considered enemies. They were going house to house searching and taking them out and shooting them. I'm not talking about collateral damage where the people hurt in the fighting. There was, of course, a lot of those too. But they were taken out and, if they were lucky, shot in the back of the head. Some were bludgeoned and buried alive. And so she came to McVee looking for me.
Yeah. And
found out that I'd been taken to Da Nang. And she went to the helicopter pad, which was right there at McVee, trying to get a ride to Da Nang. She had not been there more than an hour or so when a helicopter landed, and I got off of it. Yeah. And that was our reunion, which fortuitously enough was February 14, Valentine's Day. So that was.
So that